steps into it. Pass is caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable!
Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. Unreal. Touchdown! Kansas City! Damian Williams runs to immortality and will be remembered forever in the Chiefs' kingdom.
And welcome in again to another Sunday night here on KC Radio 97.7 FM for Talking American Footy with me, Brent, Sternberg. We're going to talk all things American footy, like the name suggests, in a season in the NFL this year which is forging ahead in spite of all the weird and wonderful and wacky things that are happening. There's been games postponed, there's been games rescheduled, and it's actually caused all sorts of hell for a lot of different people, including people that have a 1 hour NFL show every week. But we're forging ahead. We are 5 weeks in, week 6 coming up tomorrow morning. Of course, no Thursday night football this week, which was as a result of games being rescheduled. I'll talk about that later, but obviously tonight we're going to have another chat. Reflect first back on week 5, which was a week that had a lot of good wins for some teams, some poor losses, and some injuries as well that has just absolutely put a nail in the coffin of a couple of teams this year, one in particular, which I'll get onto. But we'll go back and have a look at week 5 first before we forge ahead and have a look at week 6, which, like I say, begins tomorrow. And week 5 began all the way back on Friday last week, Thursday night football, with the Chicago Bears saluting over the Bucs 1-point winners at Soldier Field. A 38-yard game-winning field goal from Cairo Santos with 1:13 to play. The Bucs, they were disappointed with that one. They had the lead 3 times in that game and couldn't get the job done. And I said last week, and we've heard a lot this week about, or last week I should say, Tampa Brady. There I go again. I said I was going to do that a lot this year, didn't I? Tom Brady with the issue on fourth down, thinking that it was fourth down, but it was actually a turnover on downs. So not a great night for the Bucs, even though they only lost by 1 point. They'll be disappointed. 11 penalties for Tampa Bay, 109 yards, I should say. And the Bucs are tied with the Cardinals, with the league leading 42 penalties through the first 5 games of the season. But their 410 penalty yards leads the league, and that's not a stat that you want to be leading the league in. So another win there for the Bears, but again, they've done it the hard way. Sunday last week, Monday morning out time, the Battle of Pennsylvania. It was the yellow and black team from Pennsylvania who were victorious in that one. Pittsburgh 38-29 winners over Philadelphia. Chase Claypool, the rookie for the Steelers, the big story in that one. He's coming out party. 7 catches, 110 yards, 3 touchdowns. That win led the Steelers to 4-0 for the first time since 1979, and they played in the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl that season. And they, in fact, won the Super Bowl the next year as well. So a good start for the Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger, a good start for him as well off injury. 10 touchdown passes and only 1 interception. The same can't be said for Carson Wentz. Another ordinary afternoon for him and another double turnover game as well. Double interceptions, I should say. 20 of 35, 258 yards, 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. So another loss for Philadelphia. They're not out of the division only because that division sucks this year, but another loss for the boys in midnight green. The LA Rams were back out on the East Coast and they made light work of Washington, 30-10. I've mused about Washington maybe making a change at quarterback and benching Dwayne Haskins. They did just that last week. Kyle Allen started the game and then he hurt his shoulder and he went to the bench injured, and Alex Smith returned after that horrific broken leg about a season and a half ago and all the complications that caused him. So that was a huge congratulations to Alex Smith. He's, I didn't think he would ever return, and he has, so well done. When Kyle Allen was in, 9 of 13 for 74 yards, didn't really do much with the football. Alex Smith come in, 9 of 17 for 37 yards, but stats mean nothing for Alex Smith. Him just getting back was huge. Aaron Donald had 4 sacks, which has equaled his career high. He leads the league in sacks right now, Aaron Donald, and he's having a monstrous season. What a player he is. There's no doubt about it. He is the best player, the best defensive player in the league right now, and perhaps the best non-quarterback player. He's a beast. Arizona, they were back on the winners list. They beat the New York Jets by the same scoreline, actually, as the game that I just mentioned, 30-10. So a good win for the Cardinals there. If you lose and want to bounce back, you want to play the Jets, don't you? Kyler Murray was back to his best, 27 of 37, 380 yards, a touchdown and a pick. DeAndre Hopkins had another massive week. That's 2 in a row now for the big off-season recruit. 6 catches, 131 yards, and a touchdown. The Jets in that one, they fall to 0-5. And the Jets, they're one of only 4 teams in the past 30 years, and the first since Jacksonville in 2013 to lose their first 5 games by multiple scores. So, yeah, the less said about the Jets start to the year, the better, but it's another win for the Cardinals. A big injury in that one, though, for Arizona, which I will touch on later. The Raiders, they had a massive win, 40-32 winners over Kansas City. That's their first win at Arrowhead Stadium, the Raiders, since 2012, so massive result for them. And it's Kansas City's first loss within that division since Week 15, 2018 against the Chargers. Remember that late 2-point conversion for the Chargers that won that game, I think, when I don't think there was any time left on the clock, actually, and they went for 2 and won the game. Henry Ruggs, the rookie out of Alabama, he had his first real big outing in the pros too. Only 2 catches, but 118 yards and a touchdown. So they had a bit of a taste of their own medicine, the Chiefs, didn't they? They've got the speedster normally on their side with Tyreek Hill, but it was Henry Ruggs with the big play in that one. What a win that was for the Raiders. Houston, a big win for them as well. Their first win, actually. They beat Jacksonville 30-14. That's their first win of the season, like I said, but their 5th straight win over Jacksonville. I touched on Houston's dominance over the Jags last week. That's another win for them. Brandon Cooks had his best game of the season. He's come over from the Rams from last season. 8 catches, 161 yards, and a touchdown. And the Jags now fall to 1-4 after their surprising win in Week 1 over the Colts. So Houston, finally, after sacking Bill O'Brien last week, get their first win of the season. Baltimore, they're carrying on winning, although not looking all that convincing doing so, even though the scoreboard was lopsided, 27-3 winners over Cincinnati. Lamar Jackson is now 8-1 since coming into the league in the AFC North. They're beating up on teams that they should, Baltimore, but they obviously have bigger fish to fry. It was a disappointing day for Joe Burrow and the Bengals after their first win last week, so the Bengals losers in that one. Carolina, another win for them. I said Atlanta Falcons fans would be nervous about this game last week. This is why. Carolina won 23-16, and they send the Falcons to their first 0-5 start to a season since 1997. And the second head coach falls on his sword, Dan Quinn, fired during the week, as well as general manager Thomas Dimitroff. They're getting good stats out of, Todd Gurley and Calvin Ridley. They're having good years, but the defense just cannot come up with plays, and Matt Ryan's starting to struggle as well. So this is a really bad start for the Falcons, and they'll have a new coach next week, and they'll have a new coach next year. Teddy Bridgewater, he's playing really well. 27 of 37, 313 yards and 2 touchdowns. So another win for the Carolina Panthers, and they go above 500 for the first time this year. They're 3-2. Talk about big wins. How about Miami? 43-17 winners over San Francisco in San Fran. It's the most points in a game for the Dolphins since Week 7, 2015, and Ryan Fitzpatrick was really good again. 22 of 28, 350 yards, 3 touchdowns. Garoppolo finally come back after injury in that one. Then he was benched at halftime after throwing 2 interceptions and was replaced by CJ Beathard. So it's testing times for Kyle Shanahan and his 49ers. A big win to the Miami Dolphins in that one. The Cowboys, they just got over the line, 37-34 winners over the Giants, but the big one there was the Dak Prescott injury. That's huge. The ankle fracture and dislocation, and the image of him leaving on the cart in tears was the image of Week 5. I don't think the Cowboys are going to be able to recover from that one. They needed a 34-yard field goal to win as time expired. Greg Zuerlein, when you allow 34 points you allowed the Giants offense, I should say, to put up 34 points, your defense is struggling. Cleveland and Indianapolis, here was a good game and a good win to the Browns, who are rocking and rolling. 32-23 winners at home over the Colts. The Browns 4-1 for the first time since 1994. Their coach that year, Bill Belichick. That's right, Bill Belichick, coach of the Browns. Baker Mayfield, 21 of 37, 247 yards, 2 touchdowns on a lost fumble, so he can't help himself, Baker. He keeps turning it over, but the Browns were good enough in that one with Kareem Hunt running all over the Colts in the absence of Nick Chubb. Phillip Rivers, still not great, 21 of 33, 243 yards, no touchdowns and 2 picks. Bad outing for the Colts, good win for the Browns. Seattle, they were made to work at home against Minnesota. They were 1-point winners there in a game that was a pretty good game. Seattle 27-26 winners. Seattle 5-0 for the first time in franchise history, and then the first team to 5-0 this year. Russell Wilson just continues to cook, 20 of 32, 217 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Wilson had to be good as the Seahawks found themselves behind though for a long time. The Vikings, interesting, they had the chance to kick the field goal to make it a 9-point lead. They led 26-20. They could have led 29-20, but they went for it on 4th down and they didn't make it. And Seattle went all the way down the field and took the lead, and that was the end of that one. Delvin Cook groin injury as well. So we wait and see what happens with that one. New Orleans, they beat the Chargers 30-27 in overtime in what was another good game and another good outing from Justin Herbert, but they just couldn't get the win there. The Chargers, they seem to have a knack of losing those close ones. Michael Badgley missed a 48-yarder that would have won the game with the scores tied at 27 apiece, and he couldn't, and then it went to overtime, and Will Lutz, who's one of the best kickers in the league, 36-yard game winner after that game went to overtime. Justin Herbert, 20 of 34, 264 yards, 4 touchdowns, but a couple of really big plays in that one. And to be honest, he outplayed Drew Brees in that game. Mike Williams the wide receiver there, Mike Williams, come up with a couple of really big plays, 5 catches for 109 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then the quarterback on the other side of things, Drew Brees, orchestrated a win, but there's still some issues with Drew Brees. 33 of 47, 325 yards, a touchdown, and 1 interception. That was Monday Night Football. And then Tuesday Night Football we had this week, as the Tennessee and Buffalo game was moved from Sunday, the 1 p.m. time slot. And Tennessee, what a statement this was, 42-16 winners over Buffalo. It's the Titans' first 4-0. It's their second 4-0 start in a season in franchise history, and they hand the Bills, of course, their first loss of the season. Massive win for the Titans, who hadn't practiced in 16 days because of the COVID outbreak. So a huge effort from them. It was really the first poor outing of the season from Josh Allen, 26 of 41, 263 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 2 picks as well. So he struggled a little bit. Green Bay and Detroit had the bye, and New England and Denver had their game moved to this week. My biggest winner from last week was the Raiders. That was a huge win for them over Kansas City. And my biggest loser is San Francisco. They have no right. I know they got injuries, but they have no right losing to Miami at home. And I've been saying, and I said a few weeks ago, that you could put a line through San Francisco. They are in all sorts of trouble with a division where the other 3 teams, I think, have gone past them this season. So that was a look back at week 5, where there was a lot of good results for some teams and bad for others, and some big injuries as well. And I'll delve into some of those injuries when I turn my attention to week 6 when we return. I'm talking American footy with me, Brent Sternberg. You're listening to KC Radio 97.7 FM. Back in a bit. Welcome back. You're listening to Talkin' American Footy on KC Radio 97.7 FM, and I'm your host, Brent Sternberg. Before the break, we reflected on week 5 and had a look at all the results from week 5, and now we're going to turn our attention and have a look at a really interesting set of games coming up in week 6, which will begin tomorrow, not having had, of course, Thursday night football. It felt really strange not having a game on Friday morning as an Aussie to look forward to. But I guess the good thing about that, I suppose, is that we get to have a double header on Monday night. So the game that was set for Thursday night football, it was supposed to be Kansas City at Buffalo. That has moved from Thursday night football to Monday night football. So the double header we will have, that will actually be the entree, I suppose, if you will. The other game that has been moved, like I mentioned before the ad break, there is Denver at New England. So that was supposed to happen last week in the 1 p.m. time slot. That will happen tomorrow in the 1 p.m. time slot, or should I say the 4 a.m. time slot. The Patriots last week, they had another player test positive for COVID-19 on Sunday morning, which led to a third shutdown of the team facility in 10 days, and obviously the postponement of their scheduled Week 5 matchup. Against the Broncos, there's a couple of Broncos players that were not happy with that, including the star safety Justin Simmons, who said the injuries at an all-time high, and our bye week was burned up with practices, so they didn't really get much of a bye week at all because they practiced all week, assuming they were going to play, and then their game was postponed on the day that they were supposed to play. So you can understand from the Broncos' point of view why they would be annoyed by that. It's looking like Cam Newton's going to play next week, of course, which is great news for them and great news for Cam that he's back healthy and he's recovered from COVID. And they need him too because they looked helpless or hapless, I should say, against Kansas City last week at the quarterback position. New England have won 5 straight home games against Denver over the journey, and I think they'll win this one. It will be interesting to see, though, how they go, having had their facilities closed and not having played last week. I said during the break that didn't seem to affect Tennessee last week. So let's see if Bill can get his mob up for this one. So New England, I think he will. New England victorious, I reckon, in that one. Although it does look like Denver are going to get Drew Lock back tomorrow, which is great for them. The next game up on the assembly line is Houston at Tennessee. 2 teams coming off really important wins, but for different reasons. Houston getting their first win of the season under their interim coach Romeo Crennel, who become the oldest head coach in NFL history on Sunday. So well done, Coach Crennel. Houston, they finally got a lift from its ground game from David Johnson. He went over 100 yards from scrimmage for the first time since his standout performance in Week 1. And Tennessee, a mammoth victory against Buffalo last week on Tuesday Night Football for the whole world to see. They really did make a statement, and I just wonder where Tennessee sit currently in the pecking order of AFC teams. I feel like they've gone under the radar a little bit. And now after that big victory, I think that they need to really be held in contention alongside Kansas City. I'm not entirely sure if they play Kansas City this year. I'll have to go and have a look. Those 2 teams normally play pretty good games. That was a good AFC Championship game, of course. So, but they're in contention. Tennessee, don't worry about that. And they become the first team on Tuesday Night Football to score a touchdown on every red zone possession, that is with a minimum of 6 drives into the red zone, to score on all 6 drives, have 0 turnovers and allow no sacks since New England in 2007, which was the undefeated New England season, undefeated until the Super Bowl, of course. And Tennessee, with that win, now there's just 2 undefeated teams in the AFC, and they are one of them. Tennessee, Pittsburgh being the other, of course. And the interesting thing is they were set to play each other a couple of weeks ago, and that game was postponed. So that will be next week in Week 7. So we look forward to this. If Houston can win this one, this will really set the cat amongst the pigeons in the AFC South. But I don't think they will. It's in Tennessee, and I think Tennessee will be feeling really good about themselves, and they'll have another win coming their way, I think. This is another good game in the AFC North. Cleveland and Pittsburgh. The Steelers 4-0 for the first time in 41 years, like I said before the break. Chase Claypool had a massive game, and he was the 2nd-round pick, Chase Claypool. And you have a look at their history. If you need a team, if you need a group of scouts and coaches to draft and nurture a young receiver, but you're not willing to spend a 1st-round pick on a receiver, then you get these Steelers recruiters and coaches in. Listen to this. Mike Wallace, Antonio Brown, we all know how that ended, but still, Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, Juju Smith-Schuster, James Washington, Deontay Johnson, and of course Chase Claypool, all really wonderful wide receivers drafted by the Steelers outside of the 1st round. So they've got a great track record at that position and a couple of other positions as well. The Browns, they piled up more yardage in one half than the Colts defense had allowed all season to a slate of lesser opponents, admittedly, the Indianapolis defense. But they're firing on all cylinders, the Cleveland Browns offense. And this, of course, is the first game between these two teams the second game, but the first game featuring Myles Garrett since the helmets, that incident. You remember that one? And Myles Garrett comes to the Steel City playing for the Browns. He's second in the league with 6 sacks, and he's well and truly in the discussion for Defensive Player of the Year. Myles Garrett, he's having a wonderful season. Big Ben Roethlisberger, 22-2-1 versus the Browns in his career, so he's only lost twice. And I don't think they will lose this one, the Steelers. Two teams playing really well. I'm looking forward to it. It's probably the most relevant game between these two teams for a little while. So I'm backing the Steelers to go 5-0. Baltimore, they go to Philadelphia. The Ravens defense, they threw a party on Sunday. They had 7 sacks by a different player. So 7 different players with a sack and 15 quarterback hits last week against Washington. In Philadelphia, they continue to struggle. But Lamar Jackson's struggling a little bit as well. And can you believe he finished last week with only 3 rushing yards? So struggling on the ground game. It seems like they're really trying to emphasize the passing game with Lamar Jackson, and it's just that's not quite happening. Travis Fulgham, the wide receiver there for the Eagles, he had another good week last week. I should say. What did he have? 10 catches, 152 yards, and a touchdown. So they've spent some early picks on wide receivers, Philadelphia, but they've got some really weird, obscure guys coming to the party and helping there. They showed heart last week in rallying back from a 31-14 deficit against the Steelers in the second half. But there were just too many mistakes, and like I said, Carson Wentz, two more interceptions for him. So at home again, Philadelphia, but Baltimore have been beating up on bad teams, and Philadelphia, they are, well, their record, they are what their record suggests that they are, and they're a bad team through the first 5 weeks, so I think Baltimore will win this one. Washington, they are on the road in New York to play the New York Giants, and golly, do these two teams need a win. Washington have lost 4 straight games by 14 or more points. They're in a bad way. Haskins has finally been benched in favour of Kyle Allen, but like I said, Allen hurt himself last week, so it'll be interesting to see if Ron Rivera goes with Kyle Allen, who he knows, of course, from Carolina. That's why he brought him over, familiar with the offensive system. Or if they go with Alex Smith again, that would be incredible to see Alex Smith start. He returned last week after that catastrophic leg injury in 2018, which was followed by an extraordinary series of infections and follow-up surgeries that, he almost lost his leg and lost his life almost. He got sepsis, and he was not in a good way at all. So interesting to see who starts there. The Giants, they coughed up an early 14-point lead against the Cowboys last week. They had 2 touchdowns taken off the board by penalties, and they let Andy Dalton march Dallas down to the winning field goal, and they watched another Daniel Jones fumble turn into a touchdown in their 5th straight loss to open the season, and Daniel Jones is now up to 31 turnovers in 18 games. So if they finish with an early pick, I wonder what they do at the quarterback position. I think they will win this game, the Giants, and get their first win of the season. Atlanta at Minnesota. Here's another team, Atlanta, who will be playing under an interim head coach. Raheem Morris will coach Atlanta for the rest of the season after Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff were both fired during the week. They've had a bad week, actually. They've sacked their coach and GM, and they've been working remotely due to a COVID outbreak. 4 personnel tested positive, I should say, late this week. So I suspect that this game, I'm not even sure if this game will go ahead, but we will see. They're at Minnesota. Minnesota, they held the ball for nearly 40 minutes and showed real resilience in gaining control of the game that really seemed to slip away against Seattle, who scored 3 touchdowns in 1 minute and 53 seconds of play in the third quarter. And really, in effect, the Vikings controlled 55 of the game's 60 minutes and still got beaten. So that's how the Vikings are travelling this season. And like I say, Dalvin Cook is under an injury cloud, so we'll see what happens there. But as far as the Atlanta Falcons are concerned, this is an organisation that is headed towards a real rebuild under the owner there, Arthur Blank or Blank. Really interested to see what they do. They've got some decisions to make, starting at the quarterback position, but not ending at the quarterback position. So watch this space with the Falcons. Detroit and Jacksonville is the next one. In Jacksonville, they've allowed the Jags 30-plus points in 4 straight games, so the defense is getting shredded. Although the absence of linebacker Miles Jack, pass rusher Josh Allen, and the rookie cornerback CJ Henderson didn't really help last week. This is a chance for the Lions to get back on the winners list, and they've actually got 2 games coming up. The Lions road games against Jacksonville and Atlanta, 2 teams with a combined record as we sit right now, 1-9. So they've got an opportunity here. If they want to get back into this season, Detroit, they need to start winning, and I think they will win this game. They will beat Jacksonville. Cincinnati, they go to Indianapolis. Indy they're allowing fewer than 265 passing yards through 5 weeks, but their defense was gashed last week against Cleveland. Rivers, he pretty much gave the Browns 9 points on a pick 6 and an intentional grounding penalty in the end zone that resulted in a safety last week. And of course, they lost by 9 points, Indianapolis. And their defense, like I say, didn't give much resistance. It's a concern. The unit was ranked number 1 entering the game against the Browns, but perhaps that was just because they've been playing easy teams and not necessarily a good unit in and of themselves. Joe Burrow, he was beaten up once again. Last week, sacked by 7 different Ravens players and hit 15 times in his worst outing as a pro. Tough game to pick this one, but I think Indianapolis back at home will beat Cincinnati. Chicago at the Carolina Panthers, the resurgent Carolina Panthers. The Bears, though, their games this season, all of them have been decided by 1 score or less, so expect this one to be another close one on Thursday night. Their 3rd victory this season where they've overcome a double-digit loss, so they are finding ways to win, Chicago. Mike Davis for the Panthers is continuing his inspired play. Career highs in touches, 25, and scrimmage yards, 149, while scoring a touchdown in his 3rd consecutive game. And Robbie Anderson has started his Panthers career in fine fashion, 99 yards receiving in 4 of the 5 games. And his 36 catches are the most through 5 games in Panthers history. So what a pickup there. And what a team this is, the Panthers. They've come from nowhere to be a real surprise through the first sort of quarter and a bit of the season. And I think they're going to beat Chicago and get another win on the board. I did see that Christian McCaffrey is eligible to return this week, but he won't. He's going to be in Cottonwood for another week. So another win here for the Carolina Panthers over the Bears. That's the early window. I'll take another break, and when we come back, we'll look at the mid-afternoon games. You're listening to Talkin' American Footy with me, Brent Sternberg, on KC Radio 97.7 FM. Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Talkin' American Footy with me, Brent Sternberg, on KC Radio 97.7 FM. Before the break, we had a look at all the games that we will be watching in the early time slot tomorrow, and of which there's some really interesting ones that I'm looking forward to see how they play out. And I think there's going to be some narratives come out of week 6 regarding some teams in contention and also some teams that are down the bottom end of the pecking order, I suppose. Now we'll turn our attention and have a look at the mid-afternoon games. I think we've got about half a dozen games in this particular time slot, including, of course, Sunday night football and then a doubleheader on Monday night football. We were supposed to get a doubleheader Monday night football last week, and then we didn't because the New England and Denver game got kicked out of that time slot. I think I mentioned in that last segment that game between the Patriots and Broncos was moved from 1 p.m. last week. It was moved from 1 p.m. last week to Monday night football, and then it was moved from Monday night football after that New England Patriot player tested positive on Sunday to this week to Sunday. So I just wanted to clear that up, and now we'll have a look at the games in the mid-afternoon time slot, starting with the Miami Dolphins coming off one of their best wins in quite a few years. Actually, they're back at home, and they're playing the New York Jets. So this will be an interesting divisional matchup. The New York Jets they're averaging on offense 15 points a game, which is the fewest in the league. You may not be surprised to hear that. They said goodbye to Le'Veon Bell during the week. He was signed by Kansas City on Friday or Thursday, I think, Friday morning our time. So Le'Veon Bell is gone. So that was a bit of a tumultuous sort of time there, isn't it? The Jets are winless through 5 games for the first time since 1996. It's been a bad start for the Jets. We've said that, and this is obviously a team that knows all about losing and all about having bad starts to the season. But what about the Dolphins? I said coming into the season that this is a team that will win some games and challenge some teams. And they're a team that are really well coached. They don't necessarily have a lot of talent. They've had, they had a lot of draft picks last year. They're going to have another 2 first-round picks this year. So they're finding talent. They're finding talent all the time, but they're really well coached. And I think they've got a good one there in Brian Flores. But how about this stat? Ryan Fitzpatrick, you would not believe this. Ryan Fitzpatrick in his career now has more games where he's thrown for 300 yards or more and has passed for at least 3 touchdowns or more. He's got 12 of those games, 300 yards or more, 3 touchdowns or more. 12 games, that's more than John Elway managed during his entire Hall of Fame career with the Denver Broncos. Can you believe that? Ryan Fitzpatrick, this is a guy that seems to play for a new team every season. But Miami have got him now, and I think they're really happy that they have him because they did not want to rush Tua along. And not only is Fitzpatrick playing well, but he's orchestrating wins. They're winning some games, Miami. So there is absolutely no rush to bring Tua along, and especially with Ryan Fitzpatrick playing as well as he is. And what are they, Miami? Let me have a look. They're 2-3. So that that's not a great record, but no one really expected too much of Miami or of Ryan Fitzpatrick, and he played okay last year and playing quite well this year. But obviously Tua is the future there. But to be able to not rush him along, that's huge. I think Miami will win this one, and I don't think they will. They'll be tested all that much. Sam Darnold didn't play last week. He still got a bit of a dodgy shoulder from that big tackle he suffered in the Denver game on Thursday Night Football a couple of weeks ago. Joe Flacco started last week. Looks like he's going to start again tomorrow. So I don't really know if that's good or bad because Sam Darnold hasn't been great, even though I'm a fan of his, but he hasn't had that good of a season. But yeah, I think the Dolphins will win this one. Here's a good game in Tampa Bay. Green Bay at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A battle between Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, 2 of the better quarterbacks of this generation. Looking forward to this one. A loss for the Buccaneers on defense that's gone under the radar. Vita Vea, the big nose tackle, 3rd-year defensive tackle, fractured his leg late in the game last week, and that's an injury, I should say, that will end his season. So it's a big loss for the Bucs, especially when they're running into a team in the Packers who have an up and going running game with Aaron Jones. So his loss will be felt for Tampa Bay up front on defense. Green Bay, 30 or more points and 0 turnovers in 4 straight games. They're really locked in, the Packers, and they're the first team in NFL history to score at least 150 points without a turnover in its first 4 games. So they're having an incredible season. I mean, the tremendous play of a resurgent Aaron Rodgers. Zadarius Smith on the defense is 3rd in sacks through 5 weeks with 5. Aaron Jones is on track for a 1,500-yard rushing season. Mason Crosby hasn't missed a field goal. I mean, there's some really great things happening for the Packers, through 5 weeks of this season. And, we've seen some teams that have come back from the pandemic-altered season and not had not had normal off seasons, with training camp and whatnot. But it's sort of made teams look ragged and pulled some teams apart. But the Packers have come to this season ready for the challenge, and they're I think they're going to go to Green Bay and beat the Buccaneers with Aaron Rodgers playing really, really well again. That'll be a close one. I reckon there might be some points in this game, but the Packers to remain undefeated and to get another win. Sunday Night Football is an NFC West showdown. It's the LA Rams who come down the highway, or up the highway. Up or down? I'm not sure. From Los Angeles to San Francisco, it's down, isn't it? Anyway, the Rams and the 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo was absolutely dreadful in his one half of play versus Miami. He completed just 41.1% of his passes, throw 2 picks, and he sent Francisco into the locker room facing a shocking 30-7 deficit at halftime. At halftime, if the game had have ended 30-7, that would have been a bad result. But that was halftime. They brought CJ Beathard out, and the Niners have already lost as many games as they did last season, and it's not going to get any easier for them up next after this game, which I think that they will lose. They have New England, Seattle, Green Bay, New Orleans, the Rams again this time in LA, and then Buffalo. How many of those games are they going to win? They might not win any of those games. This is a season that has gone pear-shaped really quickly for San Francisco. I mentioned Aaron Donald, I think before the break or earlier in this segment. Defensive tackle, he leads the NFL with 7.5 sacks, and he's on pace for 24, which would 24 sacks. That would break the all-time record, Michael Strahan with 22 in 2001. He's led a stifling Rams defense that has allowed just 108 total yards. That was last week, 108 total yards. And that's the fewest they've given up since holding Archie Manning and the Saints to 96 in a Week 12 contest, I should say, in 1980. So a long, long time there. And they've allowed the Rams one or fewer passing touchdowns in 4 of the 5 games. This is a team that we didn't really speak about, the Rams, coming into the season, but they're playing some good football. They're playing some well-balanced football, and they're going to win, I think, comfortably on Sunday night football, the LA Rams, and they'll heap a little bit more pain on the San Francisco 49ers, who entered the season as the runner-up from last year, the NFC champion from last year, and they're not going to get anywhere near that this season. So another win coming for the Rams, I suspect. Monday Night Football, the doubleheader, the first game, Kansas City at Buffalo, moved to Monday Night Football from Thursday Night Football after the Bills game had to be rescheduled with the Titans last week. Two teams who were undefeated but both lost last week, so a chance for these two teams to get back on the winners list. The Chiefs signed Le'Veon Bell on Thursday, so that's an interesting move. Their loss to the Raiders last week, Kansas City snapped a 13-game win streak. So they had been hot up until then, and the Raiders piled up nearly 500 yards of total offense on the Chiefs' defense that had looked pretty good through the first 4 weeks rather. And the Raiders, they managed 5 plays of 40 or more yards. So the Chiefs' defense was smacked around. Mahomes was pressured 16 times on Sunday, the second most pressures he's faced in an NFL game. That's according to Next Gen Stats. So the Raiders' defense really got after him. The Bills' defense, meanwhile, against Tennessee, they struggled in the red zone. I mentioned some of the historic stats the Tennessee Titans come up with. But they did play without Trey Davis-White and Matt Milano, who are two of their most important back 7 players, as well as Levi Wallace, who's an important player for them. Chance for one of these teams, like I said, to get back on the winners list. This is in Buffalo. But I think Kansas City, an angry Kansas City team, will go into Buffalo and win this one. But I think this should be another good game and another close one. And then the final game of Week 6 is the second one in a doubleheader on Monday Night Football, Arizona at Dallas. It'll be the Cowboys' first game without Dak Prescott starting at quarterback since 2015. Andy Dalton will come in, the former Bengal, of course, who we all laughed at when he was in Cincinnati, having not being able to win in prime time. Well, lo and behold, he comes in to start for the Cowboys on Monday Night Football, where he's lost 4 straight games in that time slot. The Cowboys' season-ending injuries to Dak Prescott, but also left tackle Tyrone Smith and right tackle La'el Collins. So they were smashed with injuries. The Cardinals as well, they've lost Chandler Jones, who may be their best player, certainly their best defensive player. He'll undergo season-ending bicep surgery. So that is a huge loss for the Arizona defense. Kyler Murray threw for a career-best 380 yards last week, and DeAndre Hopkins had a big game, iced the game with a beautiful one-handed touchdown grab in a Kyler Murray deep ball in the fourth quarter. This is a really interesting one. This is a game between two teams who really just need to find a way to somehow continue to win games and stay in the hunt within their division. and I really don't know who to pick. I do think Andy Dalton coming in, you could have worse backup quarterbacks in the league, but I'm not too sure how he's going to go with a defense that's not going to help him. We saw what Dak Prescott could do with no defense. He had to play lights out just to keep them in games. So I'm actually going to pick Arizona in this one. The teams on the bye this week: the LA Chargers, the Raiders, Seattle, and New Orleans. So that is the full game slate for Week 6. When I return, I'll have a little bit of a look at college football. I'll answer your questions, and there's a few tidbits that I want to touch on to wrap up as well. When I return on Talkin American Footy with me, Brent Sternberg, you're listening to KC Radio 97.7 FM. Back in a bit. Welcome back. You're listening to Talkin American Footy on KC Radio 97.7 FM with your host, Brent Sternberg. We've been going through and having a look at all the games going on tomorrow and, and Monday as well through the NFL Week 6. And we're going to turn our attention now just briefly to college football, which is starting to roll. We're not far away. In fact, this time next weekend, we'll be joined by the Big Ten Conference, and then we'll have all the major Power 5 conferences in play, bar the Pac-12, which is still 2 or 3 weeks away. So we'll go back and have a look and see what happened in college football. Last week, there was a game on Wednesday night, American time, Thursday, our time. That was Houston who beat Tulane 49-31. On Friday, there was a couple of games. Well, there was supposed to be a couple of games. The Wake Forest v. Campbell game was postponed, as were a couple of other games last week. Georgia Tech in the game that did go ahead beat Louisville 46-27. And then on Sunday, Clemson and Miami in the game that was hyped up. Clemson far too good for Miami, 42-17. Clemson, of course, the number 1 ranked team in the country at the moment. Alabama, the number 2 ranked team, they made minced meat of Ole Miss 63-48. Oh, that was a bit closer actually than I thought. What's that? A 15-point win to Alabama. So another win there for the Crimson Tide. Georgia, from the first ranked team to the second to the third in Georgia. They beat Tennessee, who are ranked 14, currently going into last week. This is Georgia beat Tennessee 44-21. Texas A&M, they had a good win. They beat Florida 41-38. Florida, the number 4 ranked team, so that's a good win for the Aggies. Notre Dame beat Florida State 42-26. Notre Dame ranked 5. North Carolina, they're ranked in the top 10 for the first time in a little while. They're ranked 8th, and they beat Virginia Tech, who were also ranked at 19. North Carolina won that one 56-45 in a high-scoring affair. Auburn beat Arkansas 30-28. BYU, who were having a good year, they beat UTSA 27-20. Missouri beat LSU 45-41, and LSU in the polls this week, they're not ranked. They're outside of the top 25, so the reigning national champions, who lost a lot of players, admittedly, to the NFL, are not ranked at the moment. They were 17 last week. This week, no ranking. Oklahoma, also not ranked. So a couple of the playoff contenders last year not ranked, although they did beat Texas, who were ranked 22, 53-45. So they actually, I have to double check, but they may be ranked actually this week, but they weren't. They weren't last week. Iowa State beat Texas Tech 31-15. Liberty beat ULM 40-7. South Carolina beat Vanderbilt 41-7. North Carolina State beat Virginia 38-21. Duke had a good win over Syracuse 38-24. Syracuse lost their safety Andre Cisco in that one. He's being talked about as a first-round pick. He's a ball-hawking free safety, so he won't play again, unfortunately, for the Orange. Army West Point beat Citadel 14-9. Arkansas State beat Central Arkansas 50-27. Troy beat Texas State 37-17. In overtime, Boston College won a close one to Pittsburgh 31-30. Middle Tennessee beat FIU 31-28. Kansas State had a good win over TCU 21-14. Navy beat Temple 31-29. East Carolina winners over South Florida 44-24. Kentucky beat Mississippi State 24-2. Louisiana Tech beat UTEP 21-17. Marshall had a win over Western Kentucky 38-14. Charlotte beat North Texas 49-21. And then there were a bunch of games that were postponed as well. So that's the state of play in college football. And the other big news in college football last week was Nick Saban, the Alabama coach, testing positive to the coronavirus. So he's obviously one of the elder coaches in college football this year. Hopefully he's not floored by that for too long, and the great coach gets over that and is back on the sidelines soon enough. Rightio, you guys have sent through some questions for me, which I appreciate very much. If you want to send through some questions, you can find me on Twitter at theboylives_26. That's me, or just type in my name, Brent Sternberg, into Twitter, or on Facebook. If you want to leave me a question on my wall, Brent Sternberg is my name. You can find me and shoot through your questions like Lockie has done. And he's asking me, should the Falcons go through a full rebuild, including trading Matt Ryan? Well, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? I mean, the Falcons 0-5. They have had a poor season, but remember they were bad last season too through the first half of the year, and then managed to pick things up in the last sort of 6 or 7 games, and I think they actually won like 6 of their last 8 games or something, the Falcons. I don't think that's going to happen this year, and obviously their coach and general manager are gone, so they'll be in the market for a new coach and a new GM. Matt Ryan's the interesting one. I think it depends on a couple of things. It depends on where your pick lands, their first round pick at the moment. I think they're scheduled to have pick 2. So if they finish with a pick inside the top 3, I think they'll absolutely take a quarterback and trade Matt Ryan. But what's his worth, Matt Ryan? I mean, he's been one of the most undervalued quarterbacks of this generation, I think, certainly of the last sort of decade. But he's 35 years old, and I think he'll be 36 going into next season. So I don't know if he'll have a lot of draft value, but I think it is the right thing to do, Atlanta, to tear everything down and start again. They need a lot of help on defense. They've had issues with their offensive line, but they don't seem to be playing all that poorly. But yeah, I think the next time they go to the playoffs, win this division, the NFC South, and go to the playoffs as a genuine contender, Matt Ryan will not be the quarterback, so you may as well move on. And if, like I said, if they end up with a pick inside the top 2 or 3, then they're going to have access to one of the best couple of quarterbacks in the draft, who are Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, who ironically are both Georgia natives. So that could be a nice sort of romantic thing there with the two hometown boys or home state boys, possibly being drafted to the pro team and playing quarterback. So I think that is what is in store for the Atlanta Falcons. This next one from Anthony: is Justin Herbert a legitimate offensive rookie of the year candidate? That's a good question. I mean, he's playing really well. He didn't play in the first week, but come in week 2 when he had to, when Tyrod Taylor copped a needle into his lungs and the doctors punctured his lung, and played really well and sort of changed the feeling around this franchise. Is he in offensive rookie of the year running? I mean, who else would be? I mean, Joe Burrow's played quite well. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been really good. There's been a couple of wide receivers. Justin Jefferson has sort of been late to the party the last couple of weeks, but he's been pretty good. Mekhi Becton, the left tackle for the Jets, has been okay, but been a little bit injured. So they're probably some of the names. I mean, CD Lamb's been quite good. Henry Ruggs has been quiet, but had a good week last week, and is certainly the kind of player who can make a late run at it. But yeah, I don't think that's a bad question, actually. Justin Herbert, if he continues to play out this season like he is, and the Chargers are going to have to win some more games for him to legitimately be in that discussion. But I think he is. I think he is in the. I think he is a legitimate offensive rookie of the year candidate, Anthony. And the final question for this week from Toby: how many wins will be needed for a team to clinch the NFC East? Well, that's a division in flux a little bit at the moment, isn't it? So I don't think we have a team that's won any more than 2 games. In fact, I think the Cowboys won their their second game last week, and that took them to the top of the division. I'm just trying to find the division on the NFL app here. Yeah, the Cowboys currently lead that division 2-3. Philadelphia in second position, 1-3-1. Washington 1-4, and the Giants yet to win a game. So I can't see Washington or the Giants winning, even though they're not really coming from that far behind, are they? But I think it's still between the Cowboys and the Eagles, although remembering the Cowboys have lost their quarterback and their defense is not great. So it's interesting, with Andy Dalton, how many wins can they get? Can they stay afloat? I do think Andy Dalton is, he's one of the, like I said before the break, one of the really good backups to have. But I don't think this is going to be like status quo. Dak goes out, Andy Dalton comes in, because Andy Dalton is not that good. And, Dak Prescott has been putting this team on his back, and they've still only won 2 games. So they've got some real issues compounded with Dak being injured. And so do the Eagles. I mean, Carson Wentz has not been playing well. They've got a banged up wide receiver group. The defense sort of started to play okay against the Steelers last week, but this is still a flawed football team. I don't know who wins it, but to be honest, I think we could probably see a team get to the playoffs, having won this division with a losing record. Again, I think maybe 7-9. Well, the Eagles can't finish 7-9, but the Cowboys maybe 7-9, 8-8. I don't think this division is going to be won by a team with a winning record, barring anything crazy going on. So I'm going to say Philadelphia win this division now, just because they've got a little bit more continuity, and I think Dak Prescott is too big of a loss. So there we go. Thank you very much for your questions, guys. Like I said, at the boy lives on Twitter if you want to shoot through some more. A couple of tidbits that I want to tidy up on before we go. The NFL announced during the week there will be no Pro Bowl in 2021. So for the 2020 season, but in January next year, there will be drills and games and all those things that they do. And fans will still be able to vote for players to make the Pro Bowl as per usual, but there won't be a game this year. So that's a little bit unfortunate, although not really. I know a lot of people don't really watch that game and take it with a grain of salt. Also, with the league moving to a 17-game schedule as of next year, the Super Bowl, the 2024 Super Bowl that was set to be in New Orleans, has been pushed back to 2025, as it would have clashed with Mardi Gras. So it's been pushed back 1 year, and that frees up 2024 as a sort of empty time slot there, which will obviously be decided upon at a later date. But yeah, the 2024 Super Bowl is now freed up, and New Orleans has been bumped back to 2025, which also pushes back the next couple of Super Bowls as well. I think we go to LA after that, and then Arizona. I think with the Super Bowl this year, of course, being played in Tampa Bay. Okie dokie, I'm about to head off, gang. Before I do, tomorrow on 7 Mates, the early game is, I should say, the Patriots and Denver. And over on ESPN, the really good one between Cleveland and the Steelers at 7 a.m. on 7 Mate, the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins. Ugh, yuck. I don't know if I'll be watching that one. And then at the same time, at 7:25, the Packers and the Bucks will play on ESPN. Sunday Night Football on ESPN, the Rams and the Niners. And then Monday Night Football, Tuesday morning, the doubleheader, Kansas City and the Bills, and then Arizona at Dallas, both on ESPN. So enjoy the football, gang. I'll see you next week to talk about everything that happened on Talkin American Footy with me, Brent Sternberg, on KC Radio 97.7 FM from 10 p.m. next Sunday night. I'll see you then, gang.